Hello anatomists, I'd like to talk about the digestive system. Just quick basic introduction for now. The digestive system is important for many reasons, but the main basic reason is it breaks down all the food we need and it gets those nutrients into our blood, and then we can discard the waste. And we need to eat food because our cells need to make ATP. Now, there are two groups of organs. There are the organs that are part of the GI tract, which is called the alimentary canal as well. And these are the organs that make up the tube on the inside that runs from mouth to the anus. And any organ that makes up part of that tube is part of the GI tract. So the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, the small and large intestine, these are all included. In addition to these organs, there are other organs that are important for contributing to the digestive process. For example, maybe they make some digestive enzymes, but they don't actually make up part of the tube. And so accessory digestive organs, your teeth, your tongue, your salivary glands found in the mouth that help to mash up our food and add saliva with some enzymes to it, your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas. These all create enzymes and bile that is sent to your small intestine to help with digestion there. So again, the accessory digestive organs don't make up part of the tube, but they're still really important for digestion and absorption to occur. Here's a picture of most of the organs of your digestive system. You can see where they're located. And so this is the tube that I was referring to before, the GI tract. So starting from the mouth and then coming through the pharynx and down the esophagus into the stomach, and then into this convoluted small intestine, and then the large intestine here. So all of those organs make up the GI tract or the alimentary canal. And you can also see some of the accessory organs here too. The liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas nestled underneath the stomach, salivary glands, tongue, teeth, those would all be accessory digestive organs. Mostly we think of the digestive system as being important for digestion, and that's absolutely true. But there are other functions that the digestive system is used for as well. Ingestion, bringing food into the body. Secretion of water, acid, buffers, and many different enzymes into the lumen of the GI tract. In addition to physically mashing up the food, there are chemicals that are added to the lumen that help to chemically digest the food. There's mixing and propulsion that takes place. You want your food to be mixed really well with the enzymes so that you have most effective digestion that's taking place. And so mixing is where the muscular layer of your GI tract contracts and helps to mix the food with the enzymes and the buffers and so forth. But it is also important for propulsion, continuing to move food forward through your digestive tract. You don't want food staying stuck in your stomach or your small intestine or large intestine forever. You want it to continue to move forward. Of course, digestion is important, both mechanical digestion, which is the physical mashing up, so our teeth chewing up our food, even the layers of muscle in our stomach mixing up our food by the contractions that they do. Those are mechanical digestive processes. Chemical digestive processes include the enzymes and the buffers that are used to break apart food into smaller pieces. Absorption, also important function of our digestive system. We break down our food into the smallest monomers that we can, the smallest building blocks of food. But we have to get it to our cells eventually. So absorption is the process of taking that already broken down digested food and moving it into our bloodstream. And in the case of lipids, we move it into our lymphatic system first before it is eventually turned over to our bloodstream. And then finally, defecation. We are not able to break down and absorb every single nutrient. There are some parts, especially some plant parts, that we're simply unable to use in our cells. Not that they don't serve other purposes in our body. It's important to have plant matter, clean out our intestines, but that food that we cannot use, that we cannot absorb, the waste product, and we need to get that out of our body as well. So here's a picture of all of those different processes. Ingestion and some mechanical breakdown in the mouth, It is moved through our digestive tract through propulsion. It is absorbed primarily in the small intestine, moves to our blood vessels or our lymphatic vessels in the case of lipid-soluble vitamins and lipids. And then the waste products are expelled from our body through defecation. There is a little bit of a difference between peristalsis and segmentation, and so these processes are frequently referred to as we talk about digestion. Peristalsis is kind of like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. So this is how you move food forward through your digestive tract. And you can see there's one area of this muscle that's contracting here that helps to push this food forward, and then the next adjacent section will contract and it helps to move the food a little bit more forward, and then the next adjacent section of muscle will contract and moves that food forward. And you have muscle throughout the tube of your GI tract. And so this is the main way that food is moved forward, whether we're talking about the esophagus or if we're talking about the small intestine. Segmentation is also contraction of your muscle, but a little bit different. This is more for mixing chemicals with your food. And so you can see that different regions contract at different times. So you have all of these regions of the muscle contracting, and then a little bit later you have different regions contracting, and then a little bit later you have yet different regions contracting. And this doesn't move food forward so much, but it is very effective, as you can see from the change in the color. This is effective at mixing your food, mixing your chyme, which is your process of food being broken down, mixing your chyme with your digestive enzymes. So peristalsis moves food forward, and it's done through contractions of the muscular layer of your GI tract. Segmentation is also contractions of your GI tract, but it's a little bit different so that you get mixing of your food with your chemicals that are being secreted. In addition to the muscular layer, you have 3 other layers of your GI tract. And these same 4 layers can be found throughout the GI tract, whether you're looking again at the esophagus, at the stomach, at the small or the large intestine. You have the same 4 layers, although they may be slightly changed according to where you are in the body. So the deepest layer is the mucosa, and then moving outward you have the submucosa, the muscularis, that's our muscular layer we were talking about with peristalsis and segmentation, and then finally the serosa is the outermost superficial layer. The mucosa has multiple sublayers within it. The innermost layer next to the lumen is the epithelium. So this is important for protection, secretion, and absorption. You also find tight junctions between the cells. If you think about the stomach and how much acid is being produced there, you do not want that acid having access to other parts of the body. And then moving outward from the epithelium, you have a lamina propria, and this is where you'll find malt. So that's the mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue that you find throughout the body, and it has immune function. Lamina propria, remember, is a connective tissue that is associated with mucous membrane, and it'll always be right next to that epithelium. And then you have the muscularis mucosa. There are many folds in this area that help to increase surface area. And surface area is going to be a really big deal for the digestive tract because you need to put so many nutrients, move so many nutrients through diffusion, facilitated diffusion in the body. Other layers don't have quite so many subsections. You have a submucosa. This is where you'll find the submucosal plexus. This has a lot of blood and lymphatic vessels. The submucosal plexus is a nervous section that helps to control the secretions that are released by the digestive system, some of those digestive enzymes, for example. Then you have the muscularis in multiple sheets. So all of your GI tract organs will have at least 2 sheets. You have an inner sheet of circular fibers and an outer sheet of longitudinal fibers. The enteric plexus here is the nervous aspect that helps to control when these contractions happen. So again, we're talking about peristalsis and segmentation. Depending on how these layers contract, that determines whether you get peristalsis or segmentation that happens. So the enteric plexus helps to control that. And then finally the serosa, which is continuous with the visceral peritoneum. So the peritoneum is a membrane, it's a serous membrane. Parietal layer of serous membranes, remember, are the outermost layer, while the visceral layers are the ones that hug the organs. So here's a picture of all those layers. And again, this is approximately the same, depending on whether you're looking at the esophagus or the small or large intestine or the stomach, but some modifications may be made. But the same basic layers should all be there. So as we look on the inside, here is the mucosa layer, and you can see the innermost layer is your epithelium. Now this is stratified squamous epithelium, so this is a picture of the esophagus. If you look in the stomach, the epithelium is simple columnar. If you look at the large intestine, you still have simple columnar, but you have a lot of goblet cells that have been added. So the epithelium may be modified depending on which organ you're in. And in fact, it is the most variable. So if you're looking at a picture, a micrograph of a section, and you're trying to figure out what organ it is, the epithelium is the best place to look. Underneath the epithelium, you have your connective tissue, your lamina propria, and then here's your muscularis mucosa, and you can see all the ridges and folds. So all these folds and ridges are due to that muscularis mucosa, helps to increase surface area. And then we have the submucosa underneath, and you may find some different glands available in the submucosa depending on what organ you're in. As you move outward, here we have the muscularis, and you'll notice they're going in two totally different directions. Here's your circular layer, and you can see it's going around the organ this way. And then you have an outer longitudinal layer that runs down the length of the organ. So they're oriented perpendicularly. And then finally, the outermost layer, we have the serosa. The enteric nervous system is referred to as the brain of the gut, and it has many, many, many connections. We found in recent years that it has so many connections within it that it rivals that of the brain. So it gets its own nervous system. Some older textbooks will classify this as part of the autonomic nervous system, and certainly you'll have plenty of autonomic input that goes into regulating the digestive system. But the enteric nervous system is specifically for digestion. And as we said before, the myenteric plexus controls motility, so it controls movement through the GI tract. So peristalsis and segmentation. The submucosal plexus controls the secretions of your GI tract organs. So digestive enzymes, for example. You have chemoreceptors that help to determine when some of these secretions are made, when you have contraction of your muscle. If you have certain chemicals in food, if the pH is changed, if you add protein, this can stimulate your enteric nervous system. And you also have stretch receptors, that feeling of fullness that you get when you have food that's brought in and you feel your stomach stretching. That also plays a role in sending information to your nervous system. The peritoneum, before we go into some of the specific organs, the peritoneum is the largest serous membrane of the body. And remember, a serous membrane is a membrane that does not have an opening to the outside of the body. So mucous membranes you can go into through the mouth, for example. A lot of the digestive system is a mucous membrane, the respiratory system, reproductive system. But serous membranes do not have an opening to the outside of the body. And the peritoneum is the largest of these. And there's two layers. You have parietal peritoneum, which lines the wall of your abdominal cavity. And then the visceral peritoneum, which is, again, the same as the serosa in those 4 different layers we were just talking about. And it covers some of your organs. And then you have a peritoneal cavity, which is the space in between these 2 layers. This is not a smooth, even, open membrane. You have 5 major folds within it. So you have the greater omentum, which is like your fatty apron, the falciform ligament that divides your liver into the right and left lobes, the lesser omentum between the stomach and liver, the mesentery, that binds your small intestine together, and the mesocolon, which binds your large intestine together. And so because of these, you don't have just loose tubing that's just hanging out in your body. You have this binding together of your organs. And so you can see how that works a little bit in this picture. So here's a real picture of your greater omentum. It frequently has a lot of adipose tissue in it. And so that's why it's often called the fatty apron. So the greater omentum just lays over on top of your intestines and your stomach. If you pull that back and reflect it back and lift up your liver here underneath, you can see your lesser omentum right here. The falciform ligament divides the lobes of your liver on the right and left side. So there's your falciform ligament right there. And if we look down here, your greater omentum has been reflected up. Here is your mesocolon that is binding together your large intestine. And then here you can see a little bit of the mesentery binding together your small intestine. And then you can see over here, the mesentery, how much you have this one mesentery that's connecting all of the different areas of tubing of your small intestine. And then here is transverse megacolon binding together some of your large intestine. Here's your lesser omentum between the stomach and the liver. And then here you can see the greater omentum. This is the most obvious fold, your fatty apron right here, the greater omentum. And these are just folds of your digestive system. And so as we talk about the organs later, remember that you have all of these different folds in your peritoneal membrane that helps to bind these organs together. It's not just loose tubing that can shift around a whole lot. There's some shifting that can happen, but mainly it is all bound together by these folds of your peritoneum.